a Monday evening here on VSiN PrimeTime, live from Las Vegas, Nevada. That is Jonathan Von Tobel. I am Tim Murray. Before we jump into the nitty-gritty of the day, one hockey game as the Boston Bruins move on past the Toronto Maple Leafs, and now they will start a series tonight against the Florida Panthers down in Sunrise. 2 games in the NBA as the Denver Nuggets host the Minnesota Timberwolves. Rudy Gobert status TBD currently as he is welcoming, according to reports, his first child. And the New York Knicks take on the Indiana Pacers. Before we get to that, I know the fellas on the morning show, Follow the Money, have been talking about it. You and I have a vested interest in this Philadelphia Phillies team because we ran through the teams that you liked to have the most wins in the month of May, and we settled on the Guardians and the Phillies. But the Philadelphia Phillies, a little day baseball today, the only day game, JVT. In the bottom of the 7th inning, Phillies lead 5-1. And the reason I bring this up is that hopefully the Phillies get to 5-0 in the month of May. And they have cashed the first 5 in 18 of the last 19 games. 18 out of 19 games, they have been up.
You counted today?
I counted today. Okay, all right. 18 of 19. So since April 16th, they have been leading after the 5th inning 18 times. The only game they did not lead after 5 innings was against the Cincinnati Reds on April 23rd. Outside of that, they have been leading every single game since April 16th, including today, as they were up after 5 innings, I believe 5-0, and they lead 5-1. That is it's a pretty decent run for the Philadelphia Phillies, and appreciate Mitch and Paulie talking about it to notice of that. How many of those did I bet? 0.
And if you go up on VSiN.com and you check out the first 5 inning summary, which you can find up on the website, the Major League Baseball section, Phillies indeed for the season because of this run, 25-8-2, or a profit for $100 better of $1,375. Care to venture a guess for the second best team in Major League Baseball in the first 5? And by the way, it is a margin. So it is the Phillies, it is the second place team, and then a pretty decent gap in terms of ROI. So we have 2 teams at the top in Major League Baseball in first 5s.
Dodgers.
The Boston Red Sox.
Really?
Boston Red Sox starting staff has been incredible so far this season, and that has led to a 21-9-5 record in first 5s, plus 27% in terms of your ROI. $100 better is up $1,143. All these numbers courtesy of our Major League Baseball first 5 innings analyzer, which you could find among many tools up on VSiN.com.
Kevin Rogers over at Vegas Insider noted this last night. He mentioned the Phillies, the Mariners over their last 18 games, 13-2-3 in the first 5, and the Orioles are in a run of 15-3-1. Big weekend for the Orioles at Camden Yards against the Cincinnati Reds. So they continue to stay hot, and hopefully they finish off the Giants here for a nice little 4-game sweep to start the month of May, and that would be a 5-0 start to the month of May. We got, plus 875?
Something like that, yeah.
And they are one of just 2 unbeaten teams in the month of May. The other, the Dodgers. They are off to a 4-0 start. So we'll keep
a series with the Blue Jays coming up, by the way. And the Blue Jays are I think the scientific term is scuffling right now. So keep it up.
Just dropped 2 of 3 to my Nats. Blew massive leads in 2 of those games. All right. Tonight in Denver, Minnesota, now catching 6.5 and 1-7 out there, JVT. And a lot of it, the movement has to do with the Rudy Gobert situation. He was not at morning shoot-around. He is questionable for tonight. We did see a tweet from Dane Moore earlier, a couple hours ago, saying there was optimism that he would indeed be around. So this was 2 hours ago from Dane Moore, who covers the Timberwolves. He's there in Denver, asking around a bit about Rudy Gobert, and there seems to be optimism that Gobert will be able to get back by game time tonight. The later tip helps. That was courtesy of Dane Moore. So on Saturday night, we all sat in amazement, especially those of us who have a series price ticket on the Timberwolves, as Anthony Edwards was absolutely unbelievable in the fourth quarter. What's your feel right now on how this game is priced, and do we expect the bounce-back situation from the Denver Nuggets?
I mean, obviously Gobert changes everything, right? Because there's multiple ways to look at this game, and it's pretty fascinating. So let's roll with the assumption that Gobert plays,
okay,
right? And I wrote about this at length up at the website. You can check out the article at VSiN.com. This is a classic situation which I have personally struggled with in a very great way. Do you play situation or do you play number?
Right.
Because we saw this number close 4 for Saturday. Right? Market came in, it was floating around 5, good chunk of the morning, whatever, ended up closing 4 in favor of Denver. You mentioned the result. We know what happened. Minnesota comes in, wins the game outright. We see this open up 4.5 for Denver. This thing gets bet up immediately to 5.5. And this is well before the news of Rudy Gobert. Who knows? Maybe somewhere out there in the market, somebody knew that Rudy Gobert was going to have a kid today, but he didn't pop up on the injury report until about 10:30 a.m. Pacific time as a questionable. Was not mentioned at all. So I can only assume market was doing what the market generally does, which is bet the bounce back, right? Bet the zigzag, whatever, especially team at home loses game 1, team coming back in game 2, generally a favorable situation. But Tim, I'm of the mindset, as we've talked about before, right? And I wrote about this, and the way I put it was, I believe that lines should be generally static. You should not be upgraded and or downgraded just because you won or lost a game before. And so a number that closed 4 and a game which went in that direction. Timberwolves came out, won the game outright. We're upgrading that rating, whatever it is, from 4 to 5.5 just because the Denver Nuggets lost that first game. Having said that, we've seen this time and again where the team has come out with a really strong effort and has covered said number. So really, it's just wrestling with the idea of what is this situation worth? I have been burned many times playing against it, being like, no, this number should not be moved, right? It shouldn't be that way, and yet team comes out and everything like that. So this is one where it's a classic spot of me. I am at odds because I think lines shouldn't really be moving that much, especially off of just a single result. And if the market was right in driving this thing down, then I think it should be right where it was for game 1, which is 4. We should also factor in that one of these teams is 5-0 straight up and against the spread and covering by an average of 14.5 points per game. And that's Minnesota, the team that was moved against here today. That's the other one where I'm like, dude, like the market has done this. The market has very clearly not had an accurate sense of where this Timberwolves team is. So again, that's all running with the premise of whether or not Rudy Gobert plays. Or excuse me, if Rudy Gobert plays. Because if he plays, we're probably going to close about 5.5, maybe even 6, if that's going to be the case.
So I love doing this, and since we've been doing the show, it really is kind of fun to just look back 2 days. As you alluded to, the closing line on Saturday when the Minnesota Timberwolves won was 4, right? You want to take a guess at what the first half line is tonight?
Oh, man, I haven't even, let's say 4.5.
4.5.
Yeah.
4.5. So you are, the first half line for Nuggets T-Wolves is larger currently. Now, it could move back if we get the official news that Rudy Gobert is going to play once again. Still questionable whether or not he will play, welcoming in the birth of his son. But 4.5 for the first half and 4 for the full game.
I mean, to be even more fair.
4 full game on Saturday, just to point out. 4.5 tonight. Right.
Well, let's break this down. The opening first half number, which was yesterday at about 5:30 a.m. Eastern time, was -3. So, because again, right, that one's got the noise of Gobert and his questionable status, whatever it is. But it's to your overall point of where we opened up here, because again, Denver first half, Denver full game. It's going to be a very popular angle, and that is something that I wrestle with. Like, is that situation worth a point and a half bump in one direction? And then, by the way, we should note, obviously, the obvious thing, which is if Rudy Gobert does not play, where should this number get to? If you will remember, and I probably shouldn't have yelled, but I did go on a rant about Rudy Gobert and his value defensively, and I will just point out that with Naz Reid at center in this regular season, they had a 114 defensive rating, which is very below average by comparison to what the Timberwolves are capable of. Their most used lineup, without Rudy Gobert on the floor, had a defensive rating on par with the Utah Jazz. So if he's not going to play, it's a really big deal. And it's a big deal outside of just his defense, Tim. If Karl Anthony Towns in a normal game gets in foul trouble, you can plug in Naz Reid to power forward and not miss a beat, because Naz Reid is like Diet Karl Anthony Towns. He fits next to Rudy Gobert. He can space the floor. He's athletic, so he can attack from the perimeter. He's awesome. He won 6 Man of the Year for a reason. But if you don't have Rudy Gobert and you have to put Naz Reid into the starting lineup. Well, then all of a sudden, if Karl Anthony Towns gets into foul trouble, you don't have that backup big coming off of the bench. Then by extension, you get smaller. You don't have the capabilities of going at Denver. Like, if Gobert's not going to play, it's massive. So again, just looking around, like, it's reading the tea leaves and trying to find out whether or not he's going to be available. Because if he's not going to play, I'd venture this closes as about 7.5. And if he does play, eventually we close it about 5.5, 6.
What adjustments will we see from the Nuggets? We'll talk to Chris Dempsey live from Denver coming up in 5 minutes. The other game that gets going tonight, the other series, I should say, is Indiana at New York. Reggie Miller, by the way, will be on the call of Game 2, which I'm sure will be pretty fun to see Reggie Miller on the broadcast there. But right now we sit 5.5, we'll call as the consensus. Couple 6 out there in favor of the New York Knicks. JVT and I will revisit our best bet from this series coming up bottom of the hour. But I wanted to point this out. You talk about at the peak of the market, Jalen Brunson's player prop tonight at DraftKings, 36.5. His last 4 games, 41, 40, 47, and 39. His over-under tonight is 36.5 for the Knicks as they take on the Indiana Pacers.
Yep, and the thing that sucks is it's going to be a sweat for you, too. That's the problem. Last 4 games that you mentioned, 120 shot attempts. Like, it's crazy.
Nuggets and T-Wolves tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern. We'll get the latest from Denver. What could we see? Tweaks from the champs. We'll find out next.
This is VSiN PrimeTime with Tim Murray and Jonathan Von Tobel on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
You can get your hands on a VSiN Pro subscription and get your ticket. Insider insights, exclusive data, and winning strategies. Limited time only. We're offering our annual subscription at an unbeatable price. Normally for $240. You can now grab it for under $200, and we'll throw on an extra 2 months for free. So check it out. 14 months for $199. Check it out now. VSiN.com/subscribe. Use the promo code PRIME. Get that deal. Again, VSiN.com/subscribe. Promo code PRIME. 14 months of a pro sub for less than $200.
That's Jonathan Von Tobel. I'm Tim Murray. Game 2 tonight at Ball Arena. The Denver Nuggets down 0-1 as they fell in Game 1. Anthony Edwards dropping 43 against the defending champs. We head now to Ball Arena in Denver, Colorado, courtesy of our progressive guest line, and bring in Chris Dempsey, who is the host of Dempsey and Company on 92.5 FM Altitude Sports, and you can also hear all of VSiN on their sister station, 950 AM. Chris, one thing that really started to pop and circulate following the game was how the Timberwolves really attacked Jamal Murray, especially in the pick and roll. What do you expect to see from a chess match standpoint from the Nuggets defensively to try to limit the hole that they had in that regard on Saturday night?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, and if I would go a step further, you know, they it particularly attacked they put Jamal and Nikola Jokic in ball screen action and just kind of attacked that one as much as they possibly could, and basically averaged over two points per possession on that, which was that's a crazy number. It's a crazy number. So I think for the Nuggets, you know, part of that is, you know, how are you holding up after that? Because a great many of those ball screen situations involved Anthony Edwards, and so, or Mike Conley in that third quarter, but mostly Anthony Edwards. And so, what are you doing behind him to kind of deter him from turning a corner? Also, if Rudy Gobert's not playing tonight, then he is, for my money, the best screener in all of the NBA, and so that is a big deal when he is not present for them to be able to knock off players on that ball screen action. So I just think that from a schematic standpoint, the Nuggets will probably play Nikola Jokic a lot more at the level of the screen, especially if the ball handler is Anthony Edwards, and maybe even blitz a couple of those, try to get the ball out of his hands. And if they can just kind of do that enough, they can get, that just kind of a real gaudy points per possession number back down to normal levels, and then they can just kind of rotate behind that.
Chris, you mentioned Gobert. What does it mean if he can't play here in this game? And what did you make of his performance in Game 1? How impactful was it in that win for Minnesota?
Yeah, he was very impactful, and he allowed Minnesota to just single up Nikola Jokic more often than not. Did they bring help sometimes? Yeah, they brought it sometimes, but was it a concerted effort to double team him, in a very intentional way? I would say not. No. And it was only because Rudy Gobert held his own, didn't foul out, didn't collect a bunch of fouls. He wasn't in foul trouble, and then was able to hold up, be strong, get a good hand up. And he was a big part of Nikola Jokic missing 14 shots in that basketball game. And if he is not present, I obviously maybe that means Naz Reid is in the starting lineup alongside Karl Anthony Towns, but those two individuals have a much more difficult time holding off Nikola Jokic, especially in the post. So, in that respect, I would guess that there would be a few more actual double teams if say Karl Anthony Towns can't hold up early on, or if he gets a couple of fouls and they got to do something different with their defensive coverages. And then offensively, he is the guy that screen assists, right? He's a screen assist guy, and he frees up ball handlers to be able to have clean and open looks, and he's done that all season long, to be honest with you. But certainly is impactful in that way, and so both sides of the court, he was really, really good in game one. And if he's not there, it's going to be a big loss for Minnesota in game two.
Chris Dempsey joining us here on our Progressive Guest Line. He is a Nuggets reporter and analyst for Altitude Sports. You could also catch his show from 10 to noon Mountain Time there on 92.5 FM Altitude Sports. I guess real quickly, I know you cover the Nuggets, so you're not ear on the ground, but you're there. Any word or feel about the status of Rudy Gobert?
There was a lot of talk earlier just about what might take place if he is not, if he's not there. And I didn't have a real sense either way. These are, of what his availability might be. It just really seems to be a 50-50 proposition to me. And so we'll see. I'm sure we'll know a whole lot more here coming up here in about a couple of hours, maybe when the coaches take the podiums for their pregame availability. And then I'm sure we'll get a lot more light shed on the situation, but it seemed kind of 50-50 to me.
So we brought up Jamal Murray and what they were doing to him, going after him on defense, Chris. He is shooting 40% from the floor in this postseason, 32% from three. Is he healthy, and what do you expect his impact to be here in this series? Because you're not going against D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves now. Right now you're going against some elite perimeter defenders.
Yeah, that's the truth. Starting with Anthony Edwards, he's one of them. And then, they're real switchable too with Jaden McDaniels as well. And so they can do a lot of things with their defensive coverages. But what I expect is this. One, I expect a more aggressive Jamal Murray from the start. He scored all 17 of his points in the second half of game one. It was 0 for 5 in the first half. And so I think that'll just change. I think the Nuggets will look to be a little bit more creative and a little bit more staunch with their own screening action to kind of free him up, to get him into a little bit more space. He just wasn't living in a lot of space in game one, and that's a credit to Minnesota's defense. But there are these instances where Jamal knows if a team is just kind of attacking him, then he'll kind of let them attack him and move the ball on and kind of get himself into the game later. I just think that that's going to be a little bit different today. I just think that he'll look for that shot. I think they'll call some things early for him to free him up and to get him some good looks. See if he can get off, make a couple baskets right off the top and then really get himself into the flow of the game. And guys, I think they'll do that with Nikola as well. Nikola missed a lot. When you go back and look at the stuff on film, Rudy Gobert gets credit for being there, being physical, getting hands up, contesting all the shots. There's probably 5 or 6 of them that I watched Nikola Jokic just make in his sleep every single night that he just did not make. And then that would have taken, a 32-point performance, maybe up closer to 40 or maybe even over 40. And his field goal percentage would have been a lot higher, and this game could have been different. And so I think both of those individuals will look to get going early and then have the team kind of build off of that.
Chris Dempsey once again joining us here. Just circling back with Nikola Jokic, who, look, he's going to win MVP again. He is one of, if not the best player in the world right now. He had 32 points in Game 1, but I'm curious what your thoughts have been from a turnover standpoint. He had 7 turnovers in Game 1, and then you look at Game 5 against the Lakers, where he had 20 rebounds and 25 points. He had 7 turnovers in that game, too. What have you made of Jokic and the turnovers these last couple of games?
So I think in those 2 games there, the turnovers are different types of turnovers. In the Lakers were a lot more able to force lost balls or bad passes, those kinds of turnovers that some of them are live and got the Lakers out in transition. But the turnovers in Game 1 against Minnesota, so he had 2 traveling turnovers. He had 2 offensive foul turnovers. He had 2 were bad pass turnovers. And so my point here is that for Nikola, it wasn't as if Minnesota was applying so much pressure that he was throwing the ball away or he was being super careless with the basketball, which is usually how, when he has very high turnover games, it's usually just a lot of bad passes in there because he's very creative with the pass, and sometimes those just don't get there against some teams. But that wasn't the case in Game 1, and so I think the Nuggets are not going to be super worried about that. Just due to the nature of the turnovers. He's not going to get 2 traveling calls today, I don't think. I mean, that's shocking that the NBA is calling it as much as they did in that one game. But and then the offensive fouls, one of them was kind of a screen in the back, and the other one was kind of a push-off. So, I mean, I just think that those are correctable items, and if he's living in a space where he's committing 3 or 4 turnovers, then that's a pretty normal space for him.
Got 20 seconds, Chris. Nuggets win tonight?
Yeah, I think so. I think they feel like there's no other option here. You've already dropped one. You got to get the split at home and then go on the road and get one. So, yeah, I have Nuggets by, let's call it 8-10.
All right, there you go. That would be a cover as well. Chris, appreciate it, and enjoy the game.
All right, appreciate you. Thank you.
There he is, Chris Dempsey, joining us on our Progressive guest line at Chris A. Dempsey on Twitter. Catch him on Altitude Sports Radio weekdays from 10 to noon Mountain Time.
There may or may not be a new flight just listed to depart MSP for Denver, currently on its way through Nebraska.
Ooh, flight tracker, keeping our eyes on Rudy Gobert. And did the home run that Kyle Schwarber hit land yet? Whew, man.
This is VSiN Primetime with Tim Murray and Jonathan Von Tobel on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
VSiN.com has a lot of great content up there, folks. First article of my eyes lay on, of course, Major League Baseball bullpen system updates from Steve Makinen as we are in the heart of MLB season. Great way to attack bullpens. You've got player props, best bets in Major League Baseball from both Zach Cohen and Adam Burke. Plenty of NBA content. And, of course, my favorite, the betting tools, your first 5-inning analyzer in Major League Baseball, your player prop analyzer in the NBA, and much more. Check it out now, VSiN.com. Use the promo code PRIME when you subscribe. We'll give you 14 months for less than $200. Check it out now, VSiN.com.
Got a couple day baseball games going on. I guess we're getting into the evening hours, but the Phillies, there we go, baby. Victory.
They won?
Boom, 6-1. They are now 5-0 in the month of May, and we just need the Dodgers to start losing some games. It's a good start for one of our best record of the months. Kyle Schwarber, I mentioned it going to break, hit an absolute tank. Another home run for him. He's got 9 home runs on the year, and I think he has 30 hits. So almost a third of his hits are home runs.
Yes, indeed. We should also note, we'll call it local fan favorite, Riley Green, outfielder for the Detroit Tigers. Derek Stevens and I have bonded over Riley Green because he's a member of my fantasy baseball team, and he plays for the Detroit Tigers. Should also note, though, that this man has been absolutely on fire. Over the last week, 9-23, 3 homers hit. He hit another one on his first pitch today. Over his last 2 weeks, he has hit 5 homers in his last 46 plate appearances, batting .326. Green's been on fire. So first pitch he saw, took it deep. Detroit and Cleveland tied at 1 apiece right now. McKenzie's on the hill for the Guardians. But just worth noting, those of you who like to tail some hot hitters for these homer props, total base props, whatever it is, if you haven't taken note of Riley Green, you probably should. Dude's on the heater right now.
1-1 in that one, and the Guardians, another one of the teams that we have to have the most wins in the month of May. 3-2 are the Guardians right now in the month of May. So we get a win here. That would be nice. But Phillies are ridiculously hot, and just repeating the first 5 run that they are on, 18-1 over the last 19 games they have led after 5 innings. Wish you could give that out for a best bet for tonight. Speaking of which, let's get to it. Best bets.
I see you using an old style.
I'm giving you the keys to the kingdom.
Putting our money where our mouth is.
I like to live dangerously.
It's time for Best Bets.
Come on, Jerry, it's a lock.
All right. Short baseball card tonight for Mr. Von Tobel over here. We will hit on the baseball card, though, in the second hour. Adam Burke will stop by for his weekly visit with us. We have 2 games in the NBA tonight. We have a game 1 on the ice tonight starting at 8 o'clock Eastern as the Boston Bruins take on the Florida Panthers. Right now, the Bruins around a Panthers minus 160 favorites, I should say, around plus 140 or so on the opposite side. I'll go through some of the first period under numbers because that has been kind of a discussion point here lately. But
You bet a first 5 or first period under?
I have been.
Like, are you doing it tonight?
No.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to talk about it, and because the most recent games we've seen a lot of unders cash because we saw a game 6 in Dallas, Vegas. We saw Vancouver, Nashville, Toronto, Boston. All 3 of those game 6s had a combined 0 goals in the first period. And then we saw 2 game 7s, Dallas, VGK yesterday, Toronto, Boston on Saturday, a combined 1 goal in those 2 games. So 5-0 combined to the under. But outside of that, it's actually been more of an overplay. So maybe a feeling out process. Yesterday, we had a game 1 in Rangers, Carolina. First period had 4 goals in that one. So Boston and Florida thought about playing first period under, which you'd pay in some juice there. It's around minus 125 to the under, but did not get to the window on that. Speaking of which, we have a new series bet for you, JVT. So let's jump to that. Oklahoma City and Dallas. That series will start tomorrow. And right now, you could find a minus 120, I think is the best price out there for the Thunder. Even money or so for the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, there's a lot to go on here, but I think that just starting at the beginning, I think Oklahoma City's being a little undervalued here when it comes to the series price. They're a team that has home court. They were the best regular season team in the NBA in the Western Conference, and I get it. The Dallas Mavericks, if you look at it over the last 25 games dating back to the regular season, they are 20-5 against the spread. They've been playing very well, but I don't think we should lose sight of the larger sample size of data that tells us that Oklahoma City is the best team in the Western Conference. They are absolutely incredible. And I think that when you look at this matchup, there's so many different intricacies to it that we can get into like in detail throughout the show. But I think the one thing that shouldn't be lost, as I mentioned this series, Tim, is the fact that Maxi Kleber is not going to be available for the series for the Dallas Mavericks. And that's a really big loss. Kleber was one of the key pieces that helped them eliminate the Los Angeles Clippers, their small ball center that allowed them to space the floor, switch everything, have 5 shooters on the floor at one point, and really, really dominated Los Angeles at times throughout the stretch, was their best on-ball defender in terms of closest defender and field goal percentage allowed in that series against LA. He's not going to play. It also eliminates some of your lineup versatility, Tim. When you have a guy like Kleber, not only can you play him as a small ball 5, you can also put him at power forward next to a guy like Gafford. You can get a little bit more versatility in terms of your size. You can do all sorts of things. The fact that he's not going to be available is a really big blow here. So I think when you look at it just on its surface, when you're talking about the Thunder, the price, how good they are, the lineup versatility loss with a guy like Kleber not being available, and some more factors, I think this warranted a play on the Thunder win this series. So Thunder series price, I bet a little like 5 cents cheaper, minus 120. I think is still perfectly playable here for Oklahoma City against the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, I tailed you a little bit on this one. We talked about it on Friday, what we thought this series price would be. I did send you one shop opened up minus 110 both ways. Now, it's pretty much consensus minus 120 right now. I was curious how low this would ultimately go, but I grabbed, I think, one shop in town had like minus 119 or something like that, so that's what I grabbed. So I got that penny, penny saved, penny earned. But no, I am very intrigued by this series, no doubt, when you look at how much love it feels like the Mavericks have been getting. Both JVT and I are on the Knicks -1.5 games on the series spread. That's still available at -125 at DraftKings, so that is a play. I wanted to throw this one at you. So Boston and Cleveland. Cleveland winning yesterday. Donovan Mitchell had a phenomenal performance in that game. But Jared Allen missed again. I mean, this is a guy that missed one game during the regular season, and Brian Windhorst said on Cleveland radio today that he could not lift his arms, or it was painful to lift his arms. I don't know how much we're going to see from Jared Allen. I was hoping to get a cheap-ish series price, on the series spread, -170 or so. But if you want to get a little creative, I think the Knicks take care of business with the Pacers based off of our bet there. You could put Knicks to beat the Pacers in the series with the Celtics -2.5 games. It's like +123 at DraftKings. What do you make of that series? We haven't hit on it yet. We'll dive into it a little bit more. But what was your initial thoughts of Celtics and Cavs?
It's a series. That's for sure.
They're going to play. It will take place. At least 4 games.
Yes, it will. It will take place. That is abundantly clear. Look, it's just a nightmare for Cleveland. I think when you see Orlando defend Cleveland the way that they did, when you have a game in which your best player scores 50 points and you still don't crack 100, it speaks to how limited you are as a team outside of said player, and of course that being Donovan Mitchell. And this time around, right? A perimeter backcourt led by Jalen Suggs, who's a very, very good defender, gave you all the trouble in the world. Now it's Drew Holiday and Derek White and Jason Tatum. Like, this is a team that is going to be able to suffocate the life out of Cleveland, I think, at this point right now. Jared Allen or not. And if Allen plays Tim, okay, then we'll put 5 shooters out there on the floor, because Al Horford can space it out too. And we'll make you guard in the perimeter, and we'll force you to run out and contest shots. You can't help off guys, like all sorts of things. It just doesn't work out for Cleveland here. So I think this is a quick series. I think generally, too, if you want to play these exacts, I think Boston in 4. I mean, look, I'll be frank. Boston should have beat Miami in 4 as well. Miami just came out in Game 2, had a historic shooting performance, shot nearly 60% from 3, extended out the series a game more than it should have. Those other 4 games, it looked like a college team taking on a high school team. It was bad. The gap was there, and I think you see the same gap transpire here, especially when Donovan Mitchell's just a one-man machine right now. Max Strus was not good in the series. Darius Garland was not good in the series. They were awful on the road. What happens when you go to Boston now to open this series up? I just don't foresee a scenario in which this is a series that goes past 5, and in that 5th game, we're again talking about maybe a historic shooting performance that extends it out an extra day.
Yeah, and Game 5, the closeout game, if you're talking about the win in 5, would be in Boston, of course, as well. You look at, what was the point differential? -31, I believe, for the series. Like that, yep. One of the worst we've ever seen for a team to win a 7-game series, and that's what the Cavaliers were able to accomplish there. So, yeah, I mean, if you want to play a little sweep, I wouldn't be opposed to that. If you want to lay the $1.70, if you want to get a little creative, but I'm with you, JVT. I think this is a very quick series. If you want to cover yourself a little bit, just in case you do get a outlier performance, that -2.5 available at DraftKings at -170. You want to pair it up with another series you like, go for it. I did that personally. Cavaliers out in at least 5.
So a good series for Cleveland.
Yeah.
Strong series. Good.
Hey.
Good for them.
But good job, guys. You got it out of the first round for the first time since 93 without LeBron James.
I have a futures ticket on him from August. Do you think we're good? You think I got a shot?
I don't know. Your analysis was really spot on. Really positive for it.
This is VSiN Primetime with Tim Murray and Jonathan Von Tobel on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Don't miss out on any of the NBA playoff action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. From the play-in tournament to the finals, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered. Same-game parlays. Wow, got too excited. Live betting, odds boosts, and more. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use code VSiN. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's code VSiN. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
That's Jonathan Von Tobel. I am Tim Murray. We are presented by DraftKings. You okay?
No, I'm not.
What's wrong?
Well, I just realized our wonderfully made graphic, which is beautiful and awesome, and tells our folks that you can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets with the promo code VSiN, has Kawhi Leonard on it.
That make you sad?
Does a little bit. I think the window's shut.
Yeah? Over?
Probably. I can only shed so many tears.
Do we want to have like we only had like a couch, like Gojo and
we should do something like that. That'd be
just
good.
lay down and talk about the Clippers.
When Paul George leaves for Philly, we can do that. I'll just lay here on the desk.
So he is going to be a free agent?
He has a player option, so he can obviously decline said player option and then do whatever he wishes. It sounds like, and he probably should ask for it, he wants a max contract, and by all accounts, the Clippers have not offered the full max to him. So that is the thing he has hanging over the Clippers' head, which, again, I think he should probably just offer it to him, but we'll see what happens.
Well, it's a good thing. It's not like they're moving into a brand new arena or anything like that next year.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of sell a fan base on, hey, we have James Harden and Kawhi Leonard, but you at least, they were 26-5 at one point, over the course of a 31-game stretch. That was a Paul George and Kawhi Leonard playing really well. That's a team that looks like it could be a championship contender, and, we can do the whole thing over and over again. But Paul George, no, to be fair, Paul George has to ask the question, do I want to do this again? I want to go through a full season and realize that the guy that I came here to play with is not going to be available in the time that we need him the most. That is a fair question to ask.
I think there will be plenty of teams out there who will be looking to give him that full max. Orlando, that's one team that has some cap space.
Sure.
Man,
Philly has tons of cap space next year, too.
Orlando could get a consistent scorer who could create his own shot. That'd be pretty interesting with that young core and the defense that they play. But man, that is that second half was as you mentioned, it's a series. That second half yesterday, that was basketball.
Yep.
That was a basketball game.
As I mentioned yesterday, they made us watch it on the Lord's Day. Think about that. Terrible.
Man, you could feel the excitement. Nothing's more exciting than a Saturday 1:00 Eastern game. Sunday, excuse me. Yeah, Sunday 1:00 Eastern game. There you go. Here's Game 7.
There's a reason they put it at 10 a.m.
Yeah,
they knew.
Donovan Mitchell was good though. Good in Game 6. All right, real quickly, just to circle back, when you look at Celtics and Cavs, that series starts tomorrow. Game 1, by the way, a 11.5-point spread, even some 12s out there for the Boston Celtics. So, boy, yeah, you can feel the excitement there. Kristaps Porzingis probably not going to play in this series. I don't know if they'll need him in this particular series. But as we look at it right now, ways to bet this series, and we have a graphic up there of different ways to bet it. You can go exact series result, 4-0, how many games are played. I was just kind of messing around in a couple shops here, and if you can get a little more creative in the exact games and series outcome, all of that. So there's ways to attack it, but I think you and I would be of the same mindset that this feels most likely like a sweep by the Boston Celtics, or at very worst 4-1.
Yeah, and again, I really believe that 4-1 would be, the Cavs had like a Miami Heat type shooting performance, and they just don't have really the personnel to pull that off anyway, right? It's Donovan Mitchell, it's Darius Garland, and it's Max Strus for the most part. George Niang, a guy who they brought in the offseason, can't even get on the floor. He played like 3 minutes in Game 7. It felt like an eternity because he was terrible. This is just not a very good matchup, but especially if bad Max Strus is going to show up. Like, Strus hit a couple of threes for him yesterday in the Game 7 win. Strus was awful yesterday. He was taking bad fouls. He couldn't hit open shots. Kept complaining the whole time, even though he was called for legitimate fouls. Darius Garland seems really like, I think lost is the best term for what we've seen from Darius Garland. He's been non-existent as well. Disappeared for the entirety of that game, Tim, until he hit a 3 to essentially stick the dagger into Orlando late in that game in Game 7 on Sunday. This is a one-man show right now in Donovan Mitchell, and they have, Boston, the pieces to go after him. Like, they're going to feel comfortable throwing Jrue Holiday on him, whatever it is. You have 4, series total games. If you want to go 4 plus 185, Boston 4-0 plus 170. Like, those are the two ways to me that you're betting this. Again, like, I had bet Boston to win in the sweep. They gave up Game 2 because of a historic shooting performance. We saw the gap between Boston and Miami in those 4 other games. I think a similar gap exists here between them and Cleveland.
Yeah, and make sure to look around. So I'm just messing around right now on DraftKings, and I went to exact series outcome, and it was Boston wins Game 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that's plus 190. So look around. Make sure you could get a couple extra cents if you want to take the Celtics to win in a sweep. I think they will. I went a different route. I paired it with the New York Knicks to win the series. Once again, that at plus 123 at DraftKings right now. Knicks to win the series against the Pacers, and then Celtics minus 2.5 for the series price. As for Knicks-Pacers tonight, two massively contrasting styles, right, of a grinding of a team in the New York Knicks and then a team that wants to run and doesn't play very good defense in the Indiana Pacers. So what do you expect just from a pace standpoint? You're looking at a total here, JVT, of 217.5 for Indiana and New York. The Knicks actually and the Pacers in their first round both went over 4 times, under twice. So both 4-2 to the over in that opening round. At Madison Square Garden, atmosphere is going to be unbelievable. What do we expect, and who's going to win the pace war? Because it is kind of fun to see. We talk about this so much, JVT, when it comes to like the NCAA tournament, finding different teams and different styles and who can ultimately, come out victorious. You've got a Pacers team that wants to run and a Knicks team that doesn't go deep, and they want to grind these games out. Yeah, but, Indiana still played kind of slow against Milwaukee. They were willing to do it, actually. If you look at the first-round series, I'm going to double-check filter this out for the play-in games. But if you look at just the conference quarterfinals in terms of pace, Indiana with Milwaukee was the third slowest series when you saw it. So it wasn't like they were really running up and down the floor between those two. They were willing. Was that more Milwaukee trying to dictate it and slow it down? Well, they had to a certain extent, but I mentioned this in the write-up for that series too. When they got Pascal Siakam, they slowed down a bit too. Yeah. They didn't become some half-court oriented team, but they did slow down a bit with Pascal Siakam out there. So I don't think that to me, it's not the pace that truly matters, right? Because while pace is predicted to a certain extent, when you look at your ability to defend, you can play at a slow pace and still give up a ton of points. And that's really the question is Indiana going to defend at a high level? In a series against Milwaukee, in which Damian Lillard missed multiple games, in which Giannis Antetokounmpo missed every single one of them, yep, and in which Bobby Portis got ejected from one that didn't have Damian Lillard, the Indiana Pacers still had a defensive rating of 117. That's not good. You give it up 117 points every 100 possessions. That is still an extremely subpar defensive rating. Now, you get into a series against New York, Tim, where they have an elite perimeter scorer in Jalen Brunson, whose point total prop is 36.5. 36.5. You are taking on a team that is the best offensive rebounding team in the NBA against you, who are the worst, 27th ranked defensive rebounding team in the NBA. I don't know, I set you up, but you were right there. You knew where we were going with it. Bad. So, and it's just, I don't know if pace matters so much as are you going to be able to defend at a high level. So you might be able to supplement your own defensive woes, as we have seen multiple times, by getting a little bit quicker, by shooting the ball, by getting out in transition. But at the end of the day, you can't defend at a high level, you can't rebound at a high level, and the team that you're taking on can do both of those things. And I think that's probably why you've seen this total get bet up a little bit from 215.5 to 217, 217.5. Maybe New York acquiesces, plays a little bit quicker. But at the end of the day, I don't think there's a universe in which consistently over the course of a best of 7, however long it lasts, that Indiana is going to defend New York at a high level. We saw them against a shell of Milwaukee, and they still had trouble doing it. The most bet player prop at BetMGM JVT is what? I'm going to go with Jalen Brunson over. Bing! Yes, it is. Over 36.5 points. I'm going to get pissed if you were going to be like, it's actually Dante DiVincenzo over 3s. The big ragu only getting 1.5 threes. These are your top 5 most bet player props, courtesy of John Ewing. Jalen Brunson over 36.5 points. As mentioned, his last 4 games against the Philadelphia 76ers, 41, 40, 47, and then 39. However, it is worth noting, games 1 and 2, he did go under this player prop pretty easily at 22 and 24 points, respectively. Jalen Brunson under 8.5 assists, the second most bet player prop. Josh Hart under points, rebounds, and assists, 32.5. Obi Toppin under 1.5 3-pointers, and then Jalen Brunson under assists and rebounds at 13.5. Those are the 5 most bet player props, courtesy of John Ewing. What should we expect from the Mecca tonight? We'll talk to our good friend John Yastrzemski, host of the New York podcast. Coming up top of the hour live from Madison Square Garden, that's Jonathan Von Tobel. I'm Tim Murray. Right now, the New York Knicks, a 5.5-point favorite, about 30 minutes away from tip time in New York.